time being approximately 7:29 p.m. The chair now calls to order the second fall meeting of the Ancient and Honorable Jefferson Literary Debate Society, now in its 186th year of continued existence. And at this point, I'll turn the meeting over to our Vice President, Mr. Chris Mullen, to introduce the evening's speaker.
Thank you, Ms. King, and thank you for everyone for coming out tonight to hear President Sullivan speak, which is what I'm sure will be a great presentation. So as we mentioned tonight, the Jefferson Literary Debate Society now is 186th year perpetual existence. We're both pleased and proud to present the first speaker in our weekly speaker series for the fall semester of 2010 as President Sullivan. President Sullivan will present a speech entitled, "How Do We Know We Are Good?" Ms. Sullivan was unanimously elected as the 8th President of the University of Virginia by its Board of Visitors on January 11, 2010. Prior to this election, she served as the Provost Executive Vice President for Academic Affairs at the University of Michigan. Previously, Ms. Sullivan was Executive Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs for the University of Texas System from 2002 until 2006. Ms. Sullivan first joined the University of Texas at Austin in 1975 as an instructor and an assistant professor in the Department of Sociology. From 1977 to 1981, she was a faculty member at the University of Chicago. Ms. Sullivan returned to Texas in 1981 as a faculty member in sociology. In 1986, she was named to the law school faculty as well. Ms. Sullivan held several administrative positions at Texas, including Vice President and Graduate Dean, Vice Provost, Chair of the Department of Sociology, and Director of Women's Studies. Over the years, Ms. Sullivan has received countless awards for her leadership and instruction, including among them the Distinguished Alumna Award from James Madison College, the Silver Gavel Award for Innovation and Graduate Excellence, and she was elected as a Fellow of the American Association for the Advancement of Science. Ms. Sullivan is the author or co-author of 6 books, has contributed over 30 chapters to various other scholarly works, and has penned seemingly countless academic articles on a variety of topics. She has served as Secretary of the American Sociological Association, President of the Association of Graduate Schools, and served as Chair of the U.S. Census Advisory Committee. Ms. Sullivan is a graduate of James Madison College and Michigan State University and holds a doctoral degree in sociology from the University of Chicago. Her current research focuses on labor force demography, with particular emphasis on economic marginality and consumer debt. The Jefferson Society is indeed honored to host such a distinguished guest this evening. Please stand and join me in welcoming the President of the Society.
I'm grateful to you and the other members of the Jefferson Literary and Debating Society for inviting me to speak. The list of speakers who come here on Friday evenings is truly remarkable. And for those of you who wish to see a more distinguished speaker, you will only come back on succeeding Fridays of the fall term. It looks very good. So tonight, I want to pose a question about our university. It's a simple question, but the answer may not be so simple. The question is this: how will we know that we are good? How will we know that the University of Virginia is good? How can we measure the worth of the university and its impact on its students? What are the indicia of quality for universities generally and this university in particular? Here's another angle on the question. Is the average fourth-year student here different from the average first-year student? Or is the fourth year who is taking a degree different from the person he or she was 4 years older? And if so, is he or she different because of the teaching and mentoring and leadership training and other experiences that occur during the course of our undergraduate years here? Or is he or she simply different because a 22-year-old has experienced 4 more years of personal growth and other forms of maturation than an 18-year-old. A book entitled How College Affects Students examines this very question. Authors Ernest Pascarella and Patrick Terenzini describe the changes that occur in young people between their first year and their last year in college. Students learn to think in more abstract, critical, complex, and reflective ways. There is a general liberalization of values and attitudes, combined with an increase in cultural and artistic interests and activities. Progress is made toward the development of personal identities and more positive self-concepts. There is an expansion of interpersonal horizons, intellectual interests, individual autonomy, and general psychological maturity and well-being. The author's research showed that young people at the end of their college careers are more likely to vote and engage in other political activities, more likely to give to charitable causes, and more likely to use principled reasoning to judge moral issues. That's great. But how much of that wonderful personal development is attributable to college learning and the influence of the student experience, and how much is the result of normal human development and maturation? So take this thought experiment. What if two equal and equally talented high school graduates, let's say they had identical economic backgrounds and were identical in other things we can measure, like grade point averages and SAT scores, went in different directions after high school graduation? What if one came here to UVA and the other went to Princeton, or a community college, or stayed at home and took college courses online, or joined the military instead of going to college at all? How would those two equally talented people turn out different from each other in 4 years? Well, we don't know, because we're talking about hypothetical people, and this experiment cannot be ethically run. The question goes to the root of the original question. How do we know if the university is good? How do we measure the extent to which the UVA experience is responsible for the transformation of promising 18-year-olds into promise-fulfilling 22-year-olds? The quality question is one universities have grappled with for a long time, probably since the University of Bologna was founded in 1088. How do we know whether or not we're doing a good job? In recent years, this issue, reframed as accountability, has become a topic for public debate, as the U.S. Department of Education, accrediting agencies, and other interested parties have increased the pressure for colleges and universities to deliver measurable results. Those of us who work in higher education are not the only ones asking the quality question. In Michigan, where I worked and lived before I came here, American automakers are furiously touting the quality and reliability of their automobiles in an effort to compete with Toyota and other foreign car makers who have already established their quality bona fides. While GM and Ford spent the last couple of decades building enormous SUVs, tricked out with an endless supply of new features, Toyota beat them out for market share by making famously reliable, perhaps slightly dull, but high-quality cars. American car makers are playing catch-up now. Although they did get some help recently when Toyota had to issue a massive recall to deal with an acceleration problem in their cars. That's another story. The quality of a car is easier to measure than the quality of a college education. You can't get behind the wheel of a university and drive at 150,000 miles to see if it performs well or if it breaks down on the highway. The metrics of quality in college or university are more nuanced. Another problem is that many determinations of quality are extremely subjective by nature. One example: in spite of all the obvious reasons why it should be impossible, judges try to score ice dancing. How in the world do you judge the quality of ice dancing? Unless an ice dancer falls flat on her face to make the judge's job easy, there is a complex code of points for the international judging system. Even so, there are subjective issues involved in scoring characteristics such as interpretation and choreography. What are the qualities that make one ice dancer's interpretation better than another's? What makes one dancer's particular tempo or step sequence better than another's? How do you judge that? It may be worth asking whether quality can be measured at all. Some of you may have read the best-selling 1974 philosophical novel by Robert Pirsig titled Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. The book describes a cross-country motorcycle trip by the author and his son. The narrative is interspersed with philosophical discussions, and many of these discussions center on the notion of quality. Eventually, Pirsig concludes that quality cannot be defined at all, because quality itself empirically precedes any intellectual description of it. Pirsig develops a theory he calls the metaphysics of quality, in which he argues that quality with a capital Q is the elemental force in the universe that stimulates everything from microscopic atoms to animals to develop higher and higher levels of quality in a never-ending cycle of quality creation. Now, even for the Jefferson Literary and Debating Society, that's pretty heavy stuff. But it helps to understand that we're grappling with a truly perplexing issue when we ask the quality question, and one to which answers refuse to come easily. Measuring the quality of a university, of this university, is a tricky business. It's riddled with loopholes, pitfalls. It's undermined by strains of subjectivity. It may appear so confounding that it doesn't seem worth trying to do so. Let's try to do it anyway. Most of us are familiar with the popular rankings that are closely watched by administrators, faculty, students, alumni, and anyone else interested in the high-stakes competition among colleges and universities. We've heard a lot of debate about the usefulness of these rankings, with supporters on one side and critics on the other. Those who support the rankings say they provide valuable information about the quality and reputation of America's colleges and universities. Critics say the rankings are an overhyped distraction for parents and prospective students who ought to be taking a closer, more personalized look at colleges and universities to determine the right individual fit for each student. Regardless of who's right in this debate, we know where UVA stands in the rankings. U.S. News & World Report just issued its most recent national rankings of colleges and universities. In the overall rankings for publics and privates, we tied for the number 25 spot with UCLA and Wake Forest University. Among publics, we tied for the number 2 spot with UCLA, behind Berkeley in the number 1 spot. That's not bad. But does it mean we're good? Regardless of precisely where we fall in the rankings, we want to be among the best universities in the world, public or private, American or foreign. We want to attract the very best faculty and students from all over the world, because the faculty and students are the ones who will determine how good we are in the end. Other rankings conducted by the National Science Foundation and the National Research Council tell us where we stand on research productivity relative to our peers. Published approximately every decade, the NRC rankings assess research doctorate programs in the United States. The upcoming NRC assessment, based on data from 2005,